Hello, everybody. My name is Laurie White, and I'm with the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce. And it's my honor and distinct privilege to be able to host these various JA speaker series interviews with prominent Rhode Island business leaders. And today we have a fabulous interview with a fabulous woman professional who has deep roots in Rhode Island and has done it all and has led so many important institutions. So I want to say hi to Leslie Taito, and Leslie is the Chief of Staff at Neighborhood Health Plan. How are you doing today, Leslie?
I'm great, Laurie. Thanks so much for having me today.
Fantastic. So you have been a fixture in Rhode Island for a long time, and you've been with various manufacturers. We've worked together in lots of different places, government and in business. So tell us what you're doing now and how you got there.
Great, thanks. So the Chief of Staff at Neighborhood Health Plan of Rhode Island, we're an innovative health plan in partnership with our community health centers, trying desperately and succeeding very much so of providing health insurance and managed care to individuals throughout Rhode Island who sometimes need additional assistance to get that level of care, and make sure that we give them a good, steady stream of health insurance so that they can take care of themselves and their families. I've been at Neighborhood, believe it or not, just a little over a year. Started in this whole pandemic craziness. So it's been interesting to navigate the process and join an organization like this in a remote environment still. But just the mission spoke to me about really making sure that we got people good, affordable health care and really helping communities that are in the most need within Rhode Island.
So people might be familiar with healthcare insurance companies that are more that have more name recognition, perhaps like Blue Cross, United, Tufts. So Neighborhood Health Plan is something like that, correct, Leslie?
It is. And we just serving many of the same populations. We have a commercial line of business, but we also serve members who are economically challenged, who are older and need some additional insurance and services. And so we do that in conjunction with the community health plans that are out in the community serving people every day in such amazing ways. But we go above and beyond that. We also look for helping them if they have food insecurity or they have transportation needs. So we really look holistically at our members and see what we can do to make sure that they're taking really good care of themselves and that they get access to medical care when they really, really need it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you explained that very well, and I'd like to follow up by asking what is the day in the life of Leslie Taito, Chief of Staff of Neighborhood Health Plan, look like? What are some of the things that you do, some of the skills that you use on a daily basis?
So probably the biggest thing is problem solving. Chief of Staff, and I've had this Chief Staff role twice now in my career. And it's really working with senior leadership and the president and CEO of Neighborhood to make sure that we can handle the day-to-day things that come up in everyday business, right? So we solve the problem so that the president and CEO can look at the kind of strategic direction of the organization. And I do a lot of handling the daily things. We would love on days if everything went according to plan, but we know that sometimes they don't. So I'm the one who will go intervene on many occasions and see if we can help get things corrected, try and find out the root cause of problems and get them out of the way, and really make sure that we're paying attention into the standards and making sure that we're working best in class, and then working with different people all across the organization. My position umbrellas the whole organization. So I can be working with people in care management, or I can be working with people who work in IT or analytics, trying to work on some complex problems or issues sometimes that the organization is having, or also really looking and taking a deeper dive into growth initiatives. How are we going to set the table or set the foundation for Neighborhood to grow in the future? So I do a lot of that work, but it's mostly problem solving. When I was younger, I used to love puzzles and figuring out how things worked. And so if you like stuff like that and you like to handle a lot of different things at a lot of different times, probably a chief of staff role would be good.
Mhm. So problem solving, I think that's a perfect way of describing, in essence, the role of the chief of staff or someone who is responsible, as you point out, umbrellaing the entire organization. So you mentioned puzzles, and I think about perseverance when you're a puzzle doer.
Yeah.
What do you think you would suggest to students today who are thinking about maybe having, I will say, a generalist role, an executive generalist role? What are some of the main skills that you think you need to be really good at?
So I'd say first and foremost, you need to be an effective communicator, right? Because if there are issues that you're trying to explain or there's an objective that you want people to achieve, you have to be able to clearly articulate to others because you want everyone to get a common vision of where you're trying to get to. So you have to be an effective communicator. You need to be a little bit of a mediator, right? So sometimes we get different groups of people involved in some of these bigger projects, and people have different opinions or they might not always agree. So you have to be able to help people learn to compromise, and you have to mediate situations. So communication, mediation, but I think sometimes you have to be a strategic thinker, right? You have to think about if we go from point A to point B, what's the best way for us to get there? And you kind of chart the course, right? So everybody can see the clear path,
Mm-hmm.
setting out that vision to make sure that people know and understand what you're asking of them, how they can participate in that group, and getting to the next point is really also important. So kind of having a strategic mind, effective communication, and then at the root of all of it is problem solving, because little issues are always going to come up that we have to figure a way either through or around. And then finally, I think you have to be tenacious. I've made a whole career of staying with problems longer than most people do. And that's how you get them to resolve. If you stick with it for the long haul and make sure that it really gets done in a good way. So you have to be tenacious.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. A lot of times, when the going gets rough, people just sort of, say, oh, forget it. They throw their hands up and say, it's too hard of a problem. I'm out of here. But to your point, the really successful people in life are those that can really focus, that can really persevere, that can really, dig deep and not give up, right? And say,
Exactly.
I know that if I can just stick with it a little bit longer, the solution will become evident. So that's a skill, or that's a discipline or a mindset, I think, that is super important in today's business world. And also it's a skill that you can use every day in your personal life too, right, Leslie?
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, I use it every day, when we're in families, and I have siblings and I have kiddos, right? So we're always trying to figure out different ways. It just helps with relationships in general, right? Trying to make sure that you can communicate effectively. You stick with problems so that you can get resolution. All those things you can integrate into your everyday life. And it's just honing those skills in a work environment, but it's really using the same principles in every day throughout our whole life.
Mm-hmm. So you have had many jobs in your life, and I think that is really indicative of what we're just talking about. So you're able to go from industry to industry, from manufacturing to finance to government to other things, because you have that fundamental skill set that allows you to sort of parachute in from using a different perspective. So tell us what your very first job was, your very, very, very first job.
Very first job, I was 15 years old. My parents actually had to sign a piece of paper for me to go to work, and I worked in fast food. I worked at a place called Famous Recipe Chicken in Maryville, Tennessee. It was the first job I ever had.
Wow.
And I started out as a cashier there, and it was just, everybody got a after school or a summer job, and I got mine a little early, wanted to start early. And it was the first job I had.
And what did you learn being a cashier at a fancy
It was
place?
it was interesting because I think the thing I was reflecting, right, when looking at doing this interview today, I was reflecting. I don't think I've ever started a job and ended up at the end of it with the same job. So I ended up as a cashier, and then we packed food, right? So it was like a kind of like a KFC where you packed the chicken and you did the drive-through register and took orders. I think the thing that I learned there was responsibility, right? I'm still always, I like to be early. I don't like to be late. The basic things, I learned to communicate effectively, right? So when you're working in a restaurant, a fast food restaurant, any job, you have to communicate with people, welcome people, solve problems there. There's something wrong with their order, right? Um, and I worked that job, and then I ended up taking the night manager role, right? I think I was 17 when I took the manager slot there. So it took me a little while. It took me a couple of years, but I moved up and kept that job through high school, right? But I learned the importance of showing up, right? You have to show up for work. And when I would go to work, I would make sure that I was ready to go to work as soon as I punched in, right? Now you go to work and you get the mindset, I'm going to go and do my job for this amount of time. And then when you're done, you're done. But I think showing up and being prepared and ready to go to work and focused on work is really important.
That's a really good point. The notion of being respectful of time, being early, other people's agendas, and I think what you were saying is attention to detail. So not just attention to time, but attention to detail. So you're the cashier, and the business wouldn't be successful if you weren't paying attention to making sure that you were cashing people out with the right bills. You weren't, getting them off by paying too little or, too much, or having people steal from the cash drawer. So attention to detail can show up and manifest itself in every job, right? And
sure it can, right?
Right.
You didn't want to add 4 extra pieces of chicken to the box by not paying attention to how many going in there, then the business loses money, right? So it's all those little details that I think you can learn in your first job when you pay attention to them. Doing things with speed, but doing it accurately and efficiently. When you have a line out the door of people waiting, right, to order, you want to get them through. So you start to really break it down. And those are all, I think, skill sets that have served me today in my career. There's a timeliness to it. There's a detail to it. It was a great summer job.
Yeah. And it sounds like the kind of job, if you had people waiting outside, you had to learn not to get rattled, right?
Oh, you had to stay cool. It's the cool under pressure, right? You didn't want to lose your mind. Some days it was a little easier than others, right? But it was a good job. But you learned all facets of the business because you weren't just the cashier. You had to take your turn and learned other jobs of packing the food to cleaning the tables and sweeping the floor and then washing the dishes at night and taking out the garbage, right? You always had, and it was a whole responsibility set, right? Because they paid you to be there and do your job. And then, so you had to do it. And I was always big on you had to do it and do it really well.
So then what happened, Leslie? What did you study at school? What are some of the hard skills that you picked up along the way that paved the way for you to be successful in your other roles?
So really studied mostly in school kind of business administration, administering business. How did it work? How did it function? I was always curious about that. Probably, if we all get to go back, probably should have done something in the engineering realm. But I didn't know. I was so interested in so many things and still am that it was hard for me to pick one, right? So I picked the kind of generalist one. But I love the engineering side of it. I love to know how things worked and how things function. But I also love the people side. I was interested in marketing. I considered going into nursing for a little while, took the whole exam, got into nursing school, and then decided it wasn't going to be for me. But but my career, I've gone kind of where I see the interest, and I think that's how I ended up in manufacturing, because I spent probably 25 years of my career in manufacturing, because I like the making of things. I like to see things being made, and I've told this story before. I was literally talking to a manufacturing owner, and he said, "Wait 1 second," and he drew something on a napkin that he had on his desk. And I said, "Well, what's that going to be for?" And he said, I'm trying to work my way through a problem I'm having with a piece of equipment. I think if I build this part, it will work." So he was doing a grant at the time I was working in employment training, went back a week later, and he had it built and it was on his desk. I'm fascinated by that process, that someone can take that from concept to a product. I'm still fascinated by it. I'm intrigued by it. I love to know how people think about it and how they make it work. I still want to learn about that stuff because I just think it's cool.
Well, you're bringing up another, super important thing to, really to teach to younger people that are coming along, the need for always learning. And also you talked about curiosity, the need to be curious. So in the minute that we have left, what advice would you give to our students?
Be curious, explore, ask questions, right? People love to talk. Ask questions. If you're interested, go to that interest. Go and see where it takes you, right? Go explore. I still like exploring, right? I still like taking things and asking questions and seeing how people think about it and what you think about it. I think that curiosity and that willingness to want to continuously learn has driven me through my whole career, and just given it such a great ride at the end of the day, that it's been a thrilling experience. So if you keep that curiosity, you keep that willingness to want to explore, you'll be fine.
Well, as we end, I will point out, Leslie, that it's almost like you're coming full circle, because you obviously had an aptitude and an interest in nursing, and now you are in the health insurance field, which is a different way of approaching taking care of people from their health perspective.
Most certainly.
You've come full circle, and I think that's phenomenal. So thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing with our students at Junior Achievement. You are a remarkable person. You are a role model for so many women. And we congratulate you on your success, and look forward to seeing you very soon.
Hey, thanks a million. I really appreciate being invited today. It's an honor. Thanks, you guys.